Hey guys, Sasquatch Prospector here. So we're at BC Ferries. Just about to get into Nanaimo. We'll hear the horn soon and the announcement telling everybody to go back. In the summertime when it's warm, not basically November, this is where you come to hang out. Just enjoy the sun deck, enjoy the views, the open ocean. Here we are, Vancouver Island. We're just coming into Parksville now. We're gonna go look at the old railway. Wow, it's weird. This railway is in the process of becoming an old ghost railway. It's not there yet, but the stations are deserted. The track service doesn't run. There's been talks of getting the railway going again, like fixing up all the old right-of-ways, the bridges. There's a lot of work. We'll talk about all that, what goes into actually repairing this railway, getting it running. But it's the Esquimalt Nanaimo Railway, which is otherwise known as the Interior Island or the Island Corridor Railway. It was owned by CP, but it was sold to the Island Corridor Foundation, I believe it is, which is a non-for-profit, which, you know, comes with its own issues of funding and having the money to do things. There's about 25 stations that remain that are serviceable and usable, but due to the neglect and the fact that they haven't been serviced and maintained, are reaching a point of no return where the stations will soon become so damaged and overrun and, you know, gross that it's not really going to be economical to fix them. But at the same time, there's the loss of the railway all the way from Victoria to Courtenay. The railway ends in Courtenay with spurs going to Cumberland and Cowichan, Lake Cowichan, as well as Port Alberni. So the Cumberland spur would be for all the coal. The Port Alberni spur would be for the mill and like the sawmill, the wood sawmill, which we toured. Make sure you check that video out. And then the Cowichan one would be for logging. That's near Duncan. So there's an old abandoned train station in Parksville that we're gonna go see. This railway is very weird because it's about to be abandoned. It has been abandoned, but there's active talks to restore it. But it could end up just becoming fully abandoned, in which case we will lose all the railway infrastructure we've had, the right-of-ways. Plus, there should just be a rail link on the island. I personally don't see the benefit of having all this stuff in place and just letting it lapse. Like, the BC government should be buying it up and starting its own railway service or something. Anyways, that's getting into politics. We're now in Parksville. This would be the old rail grade, the old right-of-way, the old stations around here. But you can see what I'm saying right here. Railway. They got a Y crossing. Look how overgrown it is. It's not even used anymore. This is a nice strip of track right through the interior on the island here. But it's not being used. Look, you just go down. It's covered in moss. The track looks to be in good shape too. Ties are all in. Obviously you need to do an inspection. Make sure everything's good. It's got everything in place to be a proper railway, but it's not. You can see the wires on the track too, the switches. It's fully overgrown on that side too. But you can see, that would have been the old station Parksville. The train station pottery shop. That's now become an old pottery shop. You can see the switches here. And then it's actuated here as well. It's an actuator there. And then you got the signs too. Red and green for controlling everything. But we'll go over on this side. You can see, guys, it's sad. This is a fully functional railway, or what could be a fully functional railway, but they just haven't decided to keep it up, keep it maintained, invest the money that needs to go into it. CP didn't really do it because there's not really much of a market for it, but you see some of these ties are eroded, but look at this. It's just completely overgrown in parts. Like, you can see all the old switchgear still here, mostly overgrown, little rail grade trail. And then you can see the pottery shop, which is now Parksville Station up there. Left. It's not quite yet abandoned. They're waiting to hear back from investors and funds. So if anybody who's got a lot of money, you're rich and you're looking somewhere to spend all your money, you got nothing better to do, invest in the railway. Obviously, I'm talking about quite a bit of money too. You need to invest a fair bit for it to get put back together in a functional setting. This railway started off as a coal and timber railway, transporting coal and timber resources up and down the island because the The coal fields in Cumberland, which is up near Courtenay, were a huge reason why that railway got built. Robert Dunsmuir incorporated it in 1883, the railway, and then 1884 construction started. Took 3 years to build, and then they built spurs. It initially went from Esquimalt to Nanaimo, and then an extension was completed to Victoria, as well as an extension going up to Lake Cowichan and Port Alberni being the logging railway. This is one of the water towers we have on the island to tour. Similar to Cranbrook, KVR, same thing, right? This one's in good shape. Looks like they've been taking care of it, which they should. What is this? The Railway Garden, 1910 to 2010. 100 years of railway history. So, this is the old water tower. Steam engine pulls up here, gets its tank filled, because having coal or wood deposits, as well as having water, they were equally important. Fuel was the dual system. You needed the wood that would heat the water, that would produce the steam, that would make the engines run. Whether you heated that water through coal or wood was your choice, or the vessel's choice, but you had to pick one or the other. Some of the old stern wheelers and trains and ships were initially wood burning, but then they switched to coal burning because it was better. Coal's more efficient. It burns hotter for longer, especially anthracite coal. It just burns way better. It's cleaner. It's less volume and tonnage that you're going to have to haul when you go wood versus coal. But coal versus wood argument aside, you had to pick certain stops along the way that were not too far away that you would get stranded, but not too close that you'd be wasting time, where you could fill up for water. So this water tower was a huge part of the fuel. You can have all the coal in the world you want, but if you got no water, you ain't going anywhere. So it was the same thing for either one, coal or water. But when dieselization came, it did away with this, because diesels burn really long and efficiently. So it did away with the need to do any of that. And it changed railway. That was in the 40s, 50s. Did the railways, the steam railways in as we know it. Basically the same as Cranbrook and all the other water towers we've seen, right? It's got the chains hanging down, same geometry. So we're Parksville right now. We're between Nanaimo and Courtenay. Courtenay being the end of the railway. But if you look here, everything's still intact. It's just not being used. The crossing across the road. Oh, did they cover those up, or what did they? No, they didn't even pave over it. No, there's still, you can see in the road, it's still accessible. And then you've got the railway here, and then the switchgear on both sides. They got the Y that goes off, branches off. So you can see there's a few areas here where it's ready to go. The Island Rail Corridor is what they call it. Initially, was these Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway. It's predominantly a coal railway used for hauling coal. That's why Robert Dunsmuir was so invested in it. Also in Esquimalt is the military base. And it's a big base. We got submarines there, frigates. A lot of stuff goes down in Esquimalt, big shipyard there. And at the time in the 1800s, Canada was still trying to assert its dominance over this region to America. So having an established military base with the rail link going through the island was a huge critical piece of national security from a Canadian standpoint, because it basically meant that from Esquimalt to Nanaimo, you had a rail corridor that you could use. And then not only that, but you have the subdivisions. So you have the Port Alberni subdivision, the Victoria subdivision, the Cowichan subdivision. And in total, it ended up being about 289 kilometers of mainline track, with a little over 300 for all the various different spurs. You can actually still follow the Port Alberni Railway out to the mill, and then there was a big mill out in Port Alberni, and same thing for Cowichan. Cowichan and Port Alberni were logging, where they would transport all the logs on a train that had either been milled, or wood products that had been milled, out to the barges on the ships, so then they could get it to market either in other parts of Canada by shipping it over to Vancouver and then on the train, or shipping it down south or over to Asia. So it was a critical link. There's a whole bunch of different towns along the way, and they're all basically, a lot of them were port places where you'd have fishing villages. Union Bay for the coal mines, big coal terminal there in Union Bay. So this is kind of the first stop. Okay guys, so here we are. We're just driving on the highway 19A, heading up towards Courtenay, following the railway. This whole time we've been driving along the rail grade, and there's a series of trestles. The French Creek trestle, Little Colquhoun trestle. These trestles, from what I can see, most part are in good shape. They'd only need a little bit of work. to get going, and that'll fall into our plan later. It's gonna be a series of videos on like what's actually needed on the government's part or on whoever's gonna take this on, if someone did choose to take it on, to like actually get the railway up and running. Like obviously there's the stations, there's a whole bunch of different things going on here, but the trestles are of key importance, and those being established is really, really critical. Big Qualicum River hatchery. So you drive right under the bridge, to my knowledge. Like again, a lot of the stuff here, I'm using a GPS and following along, right? I look at it on Google and I get the rough map, but it's not like I've exactly been here before and know everything about it, kind of a thing. So we're just basically taking this road, see if there's anything worth looking into. If not, some of this my GPS is having trouble too right now. See, so this is a prime example of like there's supposedly a bridge here, and you look at it, and yeah, I'm sure someone will chime in online that lives here saying, oh, you just have to go up that one road there, and it's like, yeah, like I said, I don't know that, guys. I'm visiting here. I'm just doing this for fun. So that's why we can't go any further, is the salmon hatchery. I'm just trying to show everyone all the different trestles basically. But we've got 2 of 5 that I could find, and then there's probably more. We're gonna take the road back down going to Victoria in the next few days, so then we'll be able to kind of track. And we're also getting into the coal seams, the various different coal fields. Vancouver Island has really, really pure coal. Vancouver Island coal powered the entire of the interior when the coal mines were flourishing. Vancouver Island coal, Nanaimo coal was highly, highly coveted. Thermal coal. There's about 25 stations supposedly that are just sitting idle. The Parksville one is now a gift shop, so we saw that. So you can see though, this is like an actual railway. Railway ties are a little, yeah. You can walk right in the middle of it. They stopped passenger service at one point, and then they stopped freight service soon after that. But this goes all the way up to Courtney. We're gonna drive the 19A highway that we're on, the scenic seaside route. That basically follows the railway, because when they built the railway, they wanted to have it as close to the ocean as possible so that whatever community it was at, they could access the port, right? The ships, because shipping was vital to that whole process of moving materials either to the places like the sawmills or the mines, or getting the material out of the sawmills and mines to market. It continues on the other side, and it cuts right through the middle of a neighborhood. So this is the French Creek Trestle Bridge near the Esquimalt Island ferry. Esquimalt a cool island too. We are driving along 19A, nice, beautiful, chill drive. It's the road less traveled if you don't want to take the highway and just rip up the island really fast. You take this way, it takes you through Parksville, Qualicum Beach, Fanny Bay, Union Bay. The railway comes right through here. We've been stopping, checking out the 2 of the 4 trestles. We missed one. We'll get that on the way back. And the other one was in a fish hatchery, which had restricted access. So that's, like I said, guys, a lot of times that's the way it goes. We're currently in a very critical area because we're coming up towards Cumberland. Cumberland on Vancouver Island, huge amount of significance. I'd covered Cumberland before, specifically the museum, and talked about the labor conditions and, you know, what it was like to get hurt and then be basically a pauper for the rest of your life. You were relegated to standing on the surface, picking the bad pieces of coal out of a bucket, and that was your job for the rest of your life. And that was all you could really do, because nobody else would hire you for anything, because you were injured in a coal mining accident, and we didn't have workers' rights or work safe like we do in British Columbia or any of these other things. So you were basically on your own and screwed, and you'd spend the rest of your life making like $1 a day picking coal out of a bucket. So, and it was the shitty coal that no one wanted that was basically separating it. So, not glamorous. Cumberland is definitely a painful experience, especially anybody that, it's painful for anybody, but in particular, if you've worked in the trades, you've ever suffered a workplace accident, going to Cumberland kind of really shows it how good we have it. Like, and I know the system's not perfect, but compared to what it was back in 1900 or before, it's certainly come a long way, and I think it's the best it's going to get until, you know, we have other changes that are unrelated to workers' rights and all that stuff. But Cumberland, on the transportation logistical side, had a huge transit point that was Union Bay. And so Union Bay and all along here, Fanny Bay, this whole region in particular that we're driving across, there used to be docks going all the way out to the strait, and that's how they loaded the coal onto ships. It wasn't directly associated with the railway, the E&N Railway, the E&N Esquimalt Nanaimo Railway. That was the main railway going up. The Wellington Railway, the Wellington Collieries Railway, was the specific company-owned rail line that came out of Cumberland, and it would come right down to Union Bay. And then at Union Bay, it'd be loaded onto ships. And then, frankly, a lot of times it would just head right over to the other side. And then they'd unload it in Vancouver, and then all that really, really nice Vancouver Island coal, that would power all the steam engines that transport the KVR and all these other railways all throughout the interior. Vancouver Island was huge for that. Very pure, nice, good coal. It actually was so pure that it actually cut into Blakeburn. Part of the reason Blakeburn had issues for its longevity, and it was an accident plus the market dropping out. So you have a bad accident that kills 40-some people, and then you have the whole market for the material that you were selling drop out. But a lot of competition came from Cumberland and Vancouver Island coal, specifically Nanaimo and Vancouver Island coal. There was a huge kind of showdown between the two. This is Union Bay Market, the old docks. That's the boat launch. The docks are gone. You can't see anything remaining much of the docks. This is where all the coal would have got unloaded from Cumberland. They come off the Wellington Collieries Railway, which was owned by Robert Dunsmuir. Robert Dunsmuir was kind of the coal baron of this whole region. Scottish. He was a coal prospector. Found a couple good prospects outside Nanaimo. Turned them into mines and then became a millionaire. But he left a lot to be desired for working, in his mines in particular. And a lot of people, I can't speak to obviously the legacy families and how they currently feel about it, but there was a lot of people for a long time that hated him and hated his guts because he had basically ruined a lot of miners' lives for coal, pretty much. His conditions were terrible. He refused to spend money on safety or mine conditions, improving the mine, building the mine safe. A lot of times, especially nowadays, modern mining companies have realized this. Investing money into having a safe mine helps the mine become more productive and actually, in the long term, pays you out more because you spend less time dealing with worker comp claims and all this stuff. Back in the early 1900s and before, they didn't think about that. That wasn't how they thought, right? They approached purely, we're here to make money, a worker is worth this much. And like in Cumberland, they straight up said they brought the mules out first, even before the white people. It was mules, white people, I think it was Europeans after that, and then it was Japanese, Chinese, and black people that went after the Europeans. So it was not good. Everybody was treated less than a donkey. If there was an accident in the mine, once the donkeys had been let out and come to the surface, then all the miners were allowed to vacate. I'd like to say that those times are gone, but if you go to mines in the third world, nothing's really changed from what I've seen in some videos. They mine without shoes, they mine without a hard hat, they've got no lights, they've got, mining with candlelight basically. So yeah, Dunsmuir, not a popular guy. One of the richest men in North America when he was going full steam. He actually built a mansion in Victoria, which kind of illustrates just exactly how much money he was making at the expense of a lot of people, their health, the safety. So he wasn't really making any money if you think about it, but he was just stealing it from all the other people that had been injured and died and, sacrificed their bodies and stuff in the process. So Union Bay, critical area. Railway that we've been following, the Esquimalt and Nanaimo Railway, that goes all the way up to Courtenay. Ends in Courtenay. They never built it any further. There was plans to build it out further to Campbell River. That never transpired, so it ended up just kind of petering out. They canceled the railway just because they didn't see a demand for it. And when it first started in the 1870s, they wanted to build this during Confederation of Canada because one of British Columbia's things was they said, we will only join Canada if a railway is built. And that included Vancouver Island. So there was talks about building a railway over to Sonora Island, which is kind of up on the Sunshine Coast. We go from the Sunshine Coast to Sonora Island to Quadra Island, and then there'd be a big bridge across the Seymour Strait to basically where we are up here, Courtenay, and then it would come down and go to Victoria. And this railway would basically block off all the channels out in the ocean. It would be a fully land link from the main coast of British Columbia all the way down to Victoria, but that never transpired. They had issues with it too because people were worried that steamships at that time were still quite prevalent, and so it was basically the train was mimicking the steamship route And so people weren't sure from like a business viability standpoint that really was worth it. So in 1883 was when Dunsmuir took over the construction of it, chartered it, and then 1884 the construction began, and then 1886 it was complete. So we're coming into Courtenay soon. That's going to kind of tie things up for today for this video. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. We did a bunch of different stuff. We saw the old Parksville railway station. Going to be more of that, guys. Talk about more mining, more history, more of everything usual on the channel. So like and subscribe, hit that bell icon to get notified when a new video comes out. Don't be missing the videos. As well as leave a comment, guys. I'd love to hear from you. Maybe some of you island guys. We've done a lot on the island, but we got more coming. I'm going to be doing more on the island in the future as well. So I don't know, maybe you guys got a cool anecdote, something I don't know, something I missed. I'm not going to get everything, guys. I say that all the time. So if there's something I missed because you think I just didn't know it, maybe I didn't know it, or maybe I just forgot to include it, there is going to be more videos coming out. So like you can see here, Cumberland, Courtenay, Comox Lake. So we're just going to continue straight on the 19A to the Seaside Road, enjoy our little scenic, well, it's early evening now, I'd say, at this time of year. So anyways, guys, you guys have a good rest of the day. Hope you enjoyed the video, and Sasquatch Prospector out.